Okay, let's go ahead with Visual Basic and see what happens if you want, in case you want to take an entire range as parameter. You have for sure noticed that several functions in Excel, the most useful ones, use entire ranges as parameters. Clearly Visual Basic is able to do it. Let's see how. It's slightly different. I have opened example.xlsx and I will use sheet first just to have some range of numbers. Now Alt F11, I insert a new module. Please look that I insert a new module trying to click completely away. I don't click here insert module, otherwise it will be a module of try to click completely away. Okay, so the module is totally independent. Okay, function. Let's build a function for which you select a range and the function just tells you how many cells are in the range. So a very stupid function, but just to begin. Function how many cells. Okay, the parameter, let's call the range R. It's not necessary at all, R. Okay. However, unlike before, it's not enough to specify R in this way, but you must tell also to Visual Basic that R is not just a single number or a single text, but it's an entire range, so R as range. Okay. In theory, you should specify this also whenever your input parameter is a number or is a text, but Visual Basic is very tolerant and let you avoid it. In fact, we have never done it until now, but for ranges it's really mandatory, so you have to specify that R is a range. You can see also that Visual Basic automatically writes as and range with a capital letter and AS become blue. Okay, so now we have our function. Very simple. How many cells equal. Let's see another interesting feature of ranges. Ranges can have properties. So R currently is a range, is the entire range selected by the user. If you put dot cells.count, okay, this thing here is a property of the range and basically tells how many cells have been selected, including cells which contain blank values, so including empty cells. Okay, so the function is over. It's a very short function just to start. Let's see whether it works. Equal how many cells. I select a range. It's partially full, partially empty, so 2, 4, 6. It's 14 cells. 14. Okay, so it has accepted a range and simply. Okay, let's complicate it a little bit. Well, complicate. Let's see two other features. In the same way, we can know how many rows and how many columns of range has function how many rows are as range. I repeat, you don't need to have the range called R. How many rows equal R. That's it. So dot rows dot count how many rows, and you can easily guess that dot columns dot count counts how many columns. Okay, so let's see whether it works. Equal how many rows. I select 2 rows only. 2. And what happens if instead of a range I select a single cell? Well, a single cell is a range, is a 1 by 1 range, so the answer how many rows will be 1. Okay, so these are the easy things. So taking a range as parameters, getting to know how many cells have you selected, how many rows, how many columns have you selected. That's easy. By the way, I'm curious, what happens if I do like something like this? How many rows, and I select an entire column. Let's see. 1 million, okay, because Excel contains 1 million, okay. Now let's delete them, okay. Compact a little bit. I don't have too much space on my screen. And let's go to more serious things, okay. So, suppose now I select a range of cells and I want to simply calculate the sum of the numbers contained in that range. Well, you don't need to build a function for doing this. There is already a function which do it and is called sum. Okay, but let's redo it. So function, I call it all sum are as range. Okay. So how does it work? Whenever you have to do a sum, the technique is always the same. First of all, you set the sum equal to 0. So sum equals 0. Okay? And then you go through all the cells that you want to analyze one by one, okay? And you increment or sum by the new value. How can you go through the cells? Well, the strategy to go through the cell is through the for each next statement. Okay, let's see. For each, I call it x, you can call it whatever you want, it's the name of a variable, in R, and here I put next. Visual Basic will start from here and take the first value that he finds in the range R and put it inside X. Then you can write here whatever you want, you probably will use X, okay? Then when Visual Basic finds the next, goes on with the next value in range R, so takes the second value in range R and puts it inside X, okay? Then we'll take the third value in range R and we'll put it inside X, and so on, okay? So now we don't calculate the sum right now, we just display the values one by one with a message box, X. So now calling it or sum for the moment it's not correct. I will just display the values one by one. Let's see. Equal or sum. I select as usual some cells which are empty and some cells which are not. The first value is 13, here it is. The second value, it's empty, in fact. So we have discovered that Visual Basic goes first by row and then by column. Third value is 10. Can it then empty? The next one should be 13 point something. Then empty. Then 11.62. Then empty, and then finishes. So this for each x in R will go through all the cells. We have discovered first the entire first row, then switch the second row, all the elements of the second row, and so on. Okay. So let's see how to sum them. O sum is equal to O sum plus x. This instruction may seem meaningless from a mathematical point of view, because it's a wrong inequality, it's a wrong equality. Okay, x is not 0, so it's a wrong equality. But in computer science, the equal sign does not mean equal. It means take the previous value of O sum, add x to it, and put the result inside the variable O sum. Okay. So what you find on the left is the variable, and what you find here is the value inside the variable. So take the value inside the variable O sum, add x to it, and put the result into O sum. So O sum will be incremented by each x in the range. Let's see whether it works. Okay, this time I try to select something easy. So it should make 37 approximately, 36 point something. 36, not this one, 36 point something. Okay. So calculating, replicating function sum in Visual Basic, it's pretty easy. Okay. Remember that if in your range you enter blank cells or cell containing text, such as this, oops, if you enter blank cells, they will be considered 0. If you enter cell containing text, unfortunately, it will give you an error because the sum doesn't make any sense. Okay. Let's see now how to do the same, but instead of calculating the sum, calculating the average. So function or average. I now invite the people who are watching the video to stop the video and try to do it yourself. Try to do whatever you want, whatever you are able to. The video should be stopped, Okay, now I will do it together with you. Okay, well, there are basically two strategies, one very basic and one more advanced. Let's start with the very basic. The very basic is the following. The average is nothing else but the sum divided by the amount of values. So I just copy the code from here. Remember that you must change name. Average. And at this, or better, even without changing name, look, I am very lazy. I keep the variable or sum, it's a new variable, okay, and here, or average equal or sum divided by r.cells.count. Okay, let's see. Oops. Equal or average. Let's calculate the average of these numbers here. Let's see what the mistake is. Or average function or average are as range. Have I specified the range? Whenever you have something yellow, remember to press this button. Okay. So or sum equal to 0 for each x in R, or sum equal. Or sum is also the name of a function. Let's call it S. Okay. So S equal to 0 for each x in R, S equal to S plus x. Okay. Now let's see whether it works. 5.20. Is it correct? From C4 to D8. Average 5.21. Yes, it's correct. However, if you use this technique and you include cells which are empty, it won't work, because it will consider in the average also the cells which are empty, since you do divide by r.cells.count. Okay. So first, there are two things I want to discuss now. First, how to improve the code a little bit. Second, how to divide by the right number. Okay. So we start now. First, how to improve the code. So we try to improve it. How to improve it? Let's build our average 2, and don't forget to put it also here. Well, we will improve it in the following way. We have a function which calculates the sum. So why not using it? So look, our average 2 equal to our sum of R. So look, I am using another function, this one, inside this function. It's possible. So inside a function, it's possible to use also another function. It will work. Let's see. So instead of our average, I write our average 2. Same result. Can you see? So this is the first improvement. So this is the first topic which I want to talk about, how to improve the function. So if you have a part of your code which is basically the code of another function, it's needless to rewrite it. You just use the other function directly, okay, with inside the parameter. Okay. However, let's see now instead how to redo everything correct, okay, excluding this time the values which are 0. So I want to exclude from the sum the values which are 0. Also here, I kindly invite you to take a look at this code, our average correct. Okay, stop the video and try to modify this part of code, making this sum only whenever x is positive or negative, so different from 0. So make this sum only when x is different from 0. So stop the video now. Okay, I'm pretty sure you have managed to do it. Let's see. Well, very simple here. If x is different from 0, then you do it, and if. So you scroll the entire range R, each element by element. Whenever the element is not 0, you make the sum. Okay. Otherwise, you don't consider it. Okay. But this is not the only thing. You have also to count how many elements you are considering. To count something, you need a counter. I call it counter, but you can call it whatever you want. I set it to 0 here. And here inside, counter equal counter plus 1. So, let's review this function here. I start setting the sum equal to 0 and the counter equal to 0. Pay attention that sum and counter are two completely different things. Sum sums the element, and counter counts the element. Okay, I go through each element in the range for next. Okay, whenever an element is different from 0, I sum it, okay, and I increase the counter by 1. So I take the previous value of counter, I sum 1 to it, and I put the result inside variable counter. Okay. Arriving at this point, we have inside S the sum of the non-zero element, and inside counter how many elements are not 0, so I divide by counter. Okay. Let's see whether it works. Equal or average correct. I consider this elements here. So 3 are empty and 3 are not empty. Well, the average should be, if it is correct, approximately, let's say 14.58. Okay. However, this technique has a big problem. Well, what happens if you average correct of nothing? So all the elements are 0. Let's see. Clearly you get an error. Okay. You could avoid it if you want in this way. Here, before you get an error because you divide by counter, counter is 0. So here you could put if counter is larger than 0, then you calculate the division and that's it. Else, you display a message box to the user, pay attention, no element is different from 0. We return, well, we return 0 or minus 1, or minus 99, just to return a strange value which remains. Or since you must return something, and if. So this is the typical technique to calculate an average with a condition. So you set the sum, you set a counter, you go through all elements in the range, taking into consideration only the ones which satisfy the condition. Okay, the condition depends on what you want to calculate. Okay, and then at the end you could simply do something like this, but you have always the risk that counter bit 0, so you check if counter is larger than 0, it means that you have some elements. Okay, then you display the result, you return the result. Otherwise you display a message box to warn the user, and you must display something anyway. Okay, so let's see. Now pay attention, our element is different from 0, we return minus 99, and in fact my function returns minus 99. Okay, this is everything. Let's see. Yes, it's everything for this part. I don't save because otherwise I will overwrite my xlsx and it will become an xlsm. Okay. Goodbye.